Hello everyone, so I was finally able to play Gotham Knights, get through the campaign, and now it's time to do a review for it. So I was able to play this game on PlayStation 5. It is developed by Warner Games Montreal, or Warner Brothers Games Montreal, and of course published by Warner Brothers Entertainment. It is inspired by the Batman Arkham video game series, but it does not take place in the same world. It's its own separate thing. None of the events of those games have anything to do with these games. It's just based off of that world. So they do have a bit of similar backstories to one another, and they definitely kind of use that knowledge that players would have gained from those games into, again, the understanding and everything for those games. But I was able to put about 15 hours into this one, and I don't plan on doing any really more after it, so a bit of spoilers for my score when it comes to that. But yes, so without further ado, let me get to my review for Gotham Knights. So of course, Gotham Knights is an action role-playing game, again, inspired by the Arkham games, inspired by the Batman Gotham Knights comic series by DC Comics, and you play as, well, 4 different characters in this. You can play as either Batwoman, Robin, Red Hood, or Nightwing. So Barbara Gordon, Dick Grayson, Tim Drake, or Jason Todd, of course. And these are pretty developed characters. They've gone through a lot of their backstories that comic readers will know. So, of course, Jason Todd's run as Robin and his history with the League of Shadows and all those things. Of course, Nightwing's role as Robin, things like that. They definitely do skip over a lot of the history of Batman in this game, and there is a little bit of Batman to do with this game, but it's definitely a bit of a passing the torch down story to, of course, having Gotham have its new protectors being the other members of the Bat family. We see a lot of Alfred, and we see a lot of these 4 characters, and you can choose at any point, aside from like when you're in the middle of missions, really, which character you play as, and they all have somewhat different abilities when it comes to the play style of it. But we'll get into that when we talk a little bit more about, again, the gameplay of this. But when it comes to the story, of course, it keeps that third-person combat style when it comes to the game. And again, too, when it comes to the story about it, it is having to do, again, too, these characters are decently developed, but the main story is the Bat family investigating just a series of murders within Gotham that seem to have very deeply rooted connections to a secret society within Gotham, which is the Court of Owls. So again, too, there's a lot of criminals within Gotham who seem to kind of no remnants about what this society is. We get to meet Harley Quinn, Mr. Freeze, Penguin. Penguin seems to have the closest ties to, again, everything to do with these, again, just very secret society. There's also a little bit of a storyline too with Talia al Ghul resurfacing in Gotham and kind of her relationship with the League of Shadows after, again, too, there's just a lot of history that they flush out. I'm not going to say anything for spoiler's sake, but Talia al Ghul is basically head honcho as opposed to Ra's al Ghul in this one. Again, it is up to the Bat family to investigate these murders, find, again, too, what's linking them together, and uncover just the secret society that is the Court of Owls within Gotham. So there's not really a whole lot more I can say without going into spoiler territory. But is this accurate at portraying the Court of Owls storyline? No. I truly believe when it comes to the Court of Owls, it needs to be handled as a Bruce Wayne story. I don't think it's a Bat family story whatsoever that they should be the forefront of it. I found it didn't work in this. Not fully because of that. I just found that they did a very bad job showcasing, again, the power, the influence, all these things that the Court of Owls has over Gotham that was very established in the comics and very amazingly written in the comics. It's easily one of the best Batman stories ever. It's essential. I believe it's come to a lot of people. And I just found that the way they twisted it in this game made it extremely uninteresting, and just the amounts of creatures and monsters that they're able to work into the League of Shadows and the Court of Owls was just very disheartening in a lot of ways, and it just made me think that this wasn't handled properly at all. It was very boring. It was a very dumbed down version of the Court of Owls. I found that the storyline went way too quickly. And that's not just with the Court of Owls. It was a very, very short campaign to get through. And there just really wasn't any story involved in it. They try to do some great things with the characters kind of rubbing off on one another and learning how to become a family and take on this new mantle that they have. But a lot of the time, it felt very, very like not. I hate using the word cringy, but the dialogue and again, just the settings that they put their characters in just seemed so goofy and very CW-ish in terms of its style, its writing, the way it presented a lot of things. Sometimes the line delivery in this too. But yeah, it just wasn't, it didn't feel gritty or dark enough a lot of the times. And I do think a lot of that has to do with, again, the setting of Gotham, which I'll get into when we talk about the gameplay a little bit. But yeah, in terms of the characters and everything and how the story progresses, extremely predictable, just extremely predictable, extremely goofy, and there just wasn't really anything here to hold my interest or attention. Very surprised that I was able to push through the entirety of this game with how much I didn't like about it. But yeah, it's definitely not something that I'm going to recommend to people to play because of the story, and it's just not good in terms of the way it paced everything out and again presented these ideas that they had. Nothing was original about it, even to the things that they tried to make original, which is so tropey, so dumb, and not true to the source material in a way that I found was respectful or could build upon in interesting ways whatsoever. So when it comes to the gameplay, I know they advertised that this was supposed to be a very, very big Gotham, and it can be if you're just going to run and zipline through the world, but I think a lot of that just has to do with you can't none of the characters have a gliding ability, none of the characters have again that's really smooth grapple hook ability that Batman had. So just a lot of their movements are a lot slower in a lot of ways. So I feel like that was where this game could kind of feel big in terms of its Gotham in a lot of ways. It's just because the movements are a lot slower. But instead of the Batmobile, you have basically the Bat Cycle. All the characters have the same Bat Cycle, and you can easily get from one end of the map to the other in 5 minutes just by riding the cycle. It's very, very quick to traverse through the world, and that definitely made Gotham feel very, very small in a lot of ways. One thing that was kind of nice about this Gotham is that there were other cars on the road. There was people walking around the streets. It did feel a little bit more alive and just seeing again people walk around, but hearing all these people basically spit the same five dialogues or five lines of dialogue the entire game and basically just being like, oh, is that Batgirl? She looks ugly. Oh, Robin, you look really young to be a vigilante. Just all lines like that. It's the same thing, hearing it again, just time after time after time after time after time. Same lines throughout the entire game. Definitely, again, too, makes it feel a little bit small. And again, too, when you compare this Gotham to the other Gothams, there's less lights, there is less kind of events going on within the world. It just felt really empty in a lot of ways in that sense too, even though there was more kind of like liveliness on the streets of people walking around. Gotham just felt empty and broke and poor in a lot of ways, which I mean, yes, it is, depending on where you go in Gotham, but in a way that just the city didn't feel like a character is what I'm trying to get at here. They populated it a little bit more, but with of course the Batman film that came out this year and of course all the other Arkham games, the city really felt like a character in a lot of ways. It felt alive in a lot of ways, and it just doesn't within this game. So it made it very boring to explore and go around, just to the points where I just didn't want to explore really anymore. There's a few, like all the side quests I just found were very simple things. There isn't a single, well, there's one boss fight at the end of this game in terms of the story, but all the other boss fights are side missions where you'll go up against like Harley Quinn, you'll go up against Clayface or Mr. Freeze. But I never ended up really doing these storylines because I just found they were so boring. And the one thing too that I really didn't like about this game is that the main story basically has you tells you, okay, go here. Now come back to the Belfry. The Belfry is where think of it as the Batcave. It's where the Bat family sets up. So go to this side of the town, come back. Go to this side of the town, come back. Go to this side of the town, come back. You walk 5 paces, there's a cutscene. You beat up a room, guys, there's a cutscene. It just breaks up the gameplay so much, and you're just going from point A to point B, back to point A, now to point C, back to point A, to point D, back to point A. It was just not fun to go through all these steps and then have a whole bunch of unnecessary cutscenes within, like again, with in between this breaking up of the gameplay that just felt so unnecessarily tedious in a lot of ways. Again, too, it just really took me out of the world and of the characters, especially too when you're in the Belfry. There's just so much that it puts in front of your face that I didn't really find interesting at all. A very, very, I don't want to say confusing leveling system, but an overwhelming leveling system. There's a lot of costumes and things that you can find too and upgrade with your characters, but I just found it was very poorly organized in a way that, again, it wasn't tough to get a handle on, but it was just too much flashing in your face a lot of the times, and it's just very poorly organized, and just again everything was so in your face about that, and I didn't really like it because it felt like it was forcing you to do so many things and not giving you really character freedom with going again just through the levels. I found too a lot of the times the tutorials and everything felt very intrusive, where you're fighting a group of enemies, and then all of a sudden a giant like tutorial pop up, and there's no way to turn it off. Will come up and just block half of your screen for 10 seconds before it fades away. And like I hated that in the combats where you need to see the cues of again to just the enemies doing their attacks, and I friggin' hated it. It just annoyed that living hell out of me a lot of times, again too, having like half the screen blocked by a pop-up that's basically telling me nothing or telling me information at the wrong time when I'm trying to fight enemies and clear them out. I found too just a lot of the missions were very, very like you go into Penguin's Club 3 or 4 times within this game, and before you have to get to his office or do anything, you have to choke out the same 7 security guards every single time, and it was just really, again, just too annoying me a lot of the times, just how basic the game was. And that comes to the combat too, where all the characters feel extremely clunky, and they don't really get smoother when you unlock abilities. They all just feel extremely slow. And of course too, I am like eventually everyone's going to compare this game to the Arkham games, but yeah, all of them felt extremely clunky in a lot of ways. Their moves didn't really interest me a lot of the time. Their secret abilities and things like that, so I found too, where just you rely on those within the combats because your basic moves do absolutely nothing. Um, there are times where like it can feel a little smooth in the dodging, but when it comes to the actual combat, holy shit, yeah, this felt extremely clunky and it's just kind of really tough to get through a lot of the times, especially too with a very poor level design. It's just really hard to it's just really, really hard to really get into this game. I found a lot of the times too when it came to, and this is relating back to Gotham City not really feeling fun to traverse, is you have to unlock the fast travel in this game, which is absolutely fine, cool to do. But I found when you unlocked it, there's a lot of cutscenes in this game, a lot of loading screens in this game that take a really long time. Of course, this runs in 30 frames per second, which I find kind of unacceptable on next gen consoles. But I found a lot of times when you would fast travel, unless you're like going not even like a kilometer in like away from in the game, the cutscenes would take so long. Sorry, scratch that. The loading screens would take so long to load up, like almost 30 seconds, and then it would put you into an unskippable like 20-second cutscene of your characters on the glider going through the world, diving down, and then you could start from where the fast travel things were. And I found it was just as quick sometimes to go on your bike and get from point A to point B at a lot of the time. I didn't feel like it was worth it to really do the fast travel at all. I mean, if you want to do the progress in this game, yes, but in order for actually using the fast travel abilities, I found the bike was just as fast, if not faster, a lot of the times. And again, too, when it comes to the skill tree, I just didn't find that they really added a whole lot to the combat. The only thing that really did was upgrading your suit and your characters throughout the game, because I didn't like how, and it doesn't make sense to me that each like section of Gotham is going to have different skilled enemies And there is basically no enemy variety in this game, which absolutely sucks. But I just found it really weird to, again, to in an Arkham game, have like stronger enemies who are like the exact same enemies that you're fighting, but all of a sudden the ones that look exactly the same are level 1 in this area, level 7 in another area, level 25 in another area. They just, it isn't fun to fight when they just basically give them an extra health bar, but they don't have different moves or anything like that. So I just found it lazy and like a very lazy use of adding, again, to just all these different skills and levels to the sections in this game when it doesn't really matter for the gameplay at all. And yeah, it's just very poorly put together, and I don't really think there's a whole lot more that I could say. This was just an absolute disappointment of a game. All my fears from watching the first gameplay demo of this didn't seem like they got better at all. Story wise, gameplay wise, just everything wise, really. And with everything together, I'm gonna have to just give Gotham Knights a 4 out of 10, and I cannot recommend anyone to really play this game. Definitely not buy it. If you can rent it from a library, borrow it from a friend for free or something, go ahead and give it a shot, but I really don't think this game is really worth anyone's time. It doesn't have any unique ideas, doesn't really bring anything to the Batman verse. Not really fun to play as a lot of these characters, and I found that they weren't true to the comics or anything like that. It's from either, of course, the Bat family to the Court of Owls to Talia al Ghul and Shadows. This game just felt so empty and boring and lifeless a lot of the times, and I just really wish that they would have spent a lot more time in creating this world and just making a better game, something that's worthy of the Batman name. But if you've played Gotham Knights, please let me know what you thought about it in the comments down below. And of course, if you like this review, definitely give it a thumbs up. You can check out everything I do on the channel in the playlist down below, and I'll link some up top here for convenience sake. Thank you for subscribing and turn that little ringer on so you know when I upload new videos. If you want to check out the description of this video and my channel bio, there's a link to the Media Mountain, which is my Discord where we talk about movies, video games, comic books, TV, pretty much everything that's awesome in this world. So you can definitely join that amazing community, help make it even more amazing than it is already. And yeah, just awesome, guys.
Sky blue eyes, I see a world behind them. No more time sinking into the silence.